When and where were you born?
Overbrook, Kansas, October 27th, 1949.
And where were your parents living at the time?
On a farm about 5 miles south of Overbrook.
What is your earliest memory?
Well, I don't remember the farm, but I do remember the next little house that they rented inside of Overbrook by the grade school.
What do you remember about it?
I remember we had a pet bird. Sam, I think, was its name. A little canary. That's probably my first.
And how long did you live there?
Till I was 12 or 13.
Is that house still there?
Yeah. Yeah. And they moved to the house that
Who were your parents?
Joy and Daryl Howard.
And what did they do for a living when you were born?
Mom was a housewife, and Dad at the time, I think, was farming.
And then what did he do later?
Electrician.
And who were your grandparents?
On
Both sides.
Claude and Gladys Howard and Grace and Gid Fisher,
And
whom I never met.
And Gid Fisher died when you were a year old?
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Heart attack.
What do you remember most about your family life? Did you have a lot of family living in Overbrook?
Mm-hmm.
How often did you see them?
Well, Grandma and Joann and them every day. They lived next door.
Because you
So we
moved
were
next
all
door?
very,
How old were you when you moved next door?
I said 11 or 12.
What-
Remember?
What did you do for fun?
We played outdoors all the time. Cowboys and Indians. Games outside, stoplight, red light, green light.
Did you ride
Freeze
bikes
tag.
around town?
Yes. It's the only way we got around was on our bikes.
Did you do chores?
Very few.
Did you earn an allowance?
Not that was what you would call steady allowance, no.
What were your favorite foods?
As still today, cheeseburgers.
What restaurants were there in town back then?
There was a restaurant downtown that Dorcas Bachelor, Tom and Dorcas Bachelor owned.
What kind of food?
Just homemade food, everything, just anything and everything. Grandma Gladys worked in there for a while. I know she made pies in there because Ben's dad, Guy, still talked about her raisin cream pie as being the best he ever ate.
And did Overbrook have a grocery store back then?
Two that I remember.
Who owned them?
My uncle Jack Fisher and my other uncle Shorty Mellies worked there as the meat cutter. And then across the street was O'Brien's.
And what happened to our family grocery store?
It burned.
Do you remember when?
Early 60s. I think I might have been in. No, I wasn't in high school, so I would probably, well.
It was after high school or before?
Oh, no, way before. I might have been a freshman, maybe.
What do you remember about that?
I just remember standing there on Main Street watching it burn.
Was it an accidental, kind of just an electrical thing, or did they ever figure it out?
You know, I don't know that I ever heard. Nobody really ever told us kids.
What did you guys do for entertainment? Did you listen to the radio or watch TV shows, or what did you do?
TV or cartoons on Saturday mornings.
What were your favorite shows?
As cartoons or just?
Just any show.
Roy Rogers was my favorite. Roy and Dale's show. Sky King.
What were you like as a child? Were you a tomboy?
Very.
Do you remember what your first word was?
I'm sure it was very nice.
Tell us about school. When did you start school and where?
Overbrook. First grade.
Did you have a favorite teacher?
No, not really. We were scared of Mrs. Birch, our second grade teacher.
Why scared?
because she would, if you did anything wrong, she'd take her ruler and whop you on the hiney.
So did you have a favorite subject?
No.
Did you have a least favorite subject?
Yes, all of them.
Okay. Were you in any clubs?
In school, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Did you play sports?
Just, they didn't have really sports back then. You just played. In grade school, we played baseball when it was nice. That was about it.
What is your biggest memory of school? We'll go ahead and say high school.
What?
What is your biggest memory of being in high school? Like, what is the
High
day you
school?
really remember?
Well, I remember the day when they announced that Kennedy had been killed.
Tell me about that.
Well, I was in study hall, and the principal came in and announced that our president had been shot. And my first thought was, who would want to shoot our, what was his name? Ronnie Skaggs, who was our student council president. I thought that's who they were talking about.
When did you figure out you were wrong?
Well, they were talking about it and everything, and then finally dawned on me it was the president.
Did they let you go home?
I think so. I think we got home early.
And what did Grandma say?
Oh, in tears. So the next how many days we watched, that's all anybody watched.
Who were your friends in school?
Marcia Simmons, Atchison, Karen Bevitt Hesseltine.
Beth Clark?
Yeah.
Did you have a curfew?
No, not really.
When did you learn how to drive and who taught you?
Well, Dad probably did. I don't really remember. I remember Mom let us take the car out of our driveway and pull in next door to Mrs. Kinney's, and we just pull back and pull in, pull out, pull in, pull out. We thought that was pretty big.
What was your first car?
Our first car as girls, Vicki and I had the 57 Chevy.
What was your favorite car?
Dad's 62 Chevy.
What did you and your friends do for fun?
Drive around chasing each other, throwing water balloons, going downtown to Toppings on Friday afternoons, waiting for the football games.
And you lived next door to your cousins. What do you remember about them? About Steve?
All of them. I mean, just playing all the time, always being together.
And Jackie and Pam and Penny?
Not so much Penny. Penny wasn't.
Because she was so much younger?
But the rest of us, we were all very close.
And you lived in a pretty small house with your sisters. Who were your sisters?
Vicki and Deb.
And you shared a room?
One room.
How did that go?
Not well.
And one bathroom?
Vicki and I did pretty good because we liked the same thing. Deb was the oddball. We loved the Beatles and she didn't, and a lot of times I would go study out in the utility room, wishing I had a room of my own, which I never had.
And did you ever take vacations? Did you take trips as a family? Where did you go?
Usually to Colorado every summer to see Marlon, Dad's brother.
And so you would drive? Was
Yep.
that fun?
It was sad when we got to the point we couldn't listen to Kiwi, our radio station, KEWI. When we get to that point where we lost it, we were ready to go back home. But yeah, we had a good time. They took us everywhere. We went everywhere when we went out there. So I can't say it wasn't fun. It was a lot of fun.
So you graduated from Overbrook Rural High School in 1967. Did you live at home for a while after you graduated, or did you move out?
I moved to Topeka in an apartment with Beth.
And did you have a job? What did you do?
My first job was a packer at the Overbrook meat locker. Shorty worked there as a meat cutter, and then I packed the meat.
And after that, what did you do?
Then I went to key punch school at Topeka Tech, and then I got a job at Forbes as a key punch operator. While I had the apartment with Beth, we worked night shifts. And then I got on the day shift, and I think it was around 73 when they closed closed our office, I think.
Okay.
Well, that can't be right. Well,
And
anyway.
were you still living there when you met Dad?
Mm-hmm.
Tell
Yep.
me about how you met Dad.
I met him at a party at Pomona Lake.
Do you remember anything about the part, like what happened?
I shouldn't discuss that with my son.
Okay. What was your first impression of him?
Well, I thought he was good looking.
And so then did you start dating after that?
Mm-hmm.
And then he had to go to Vietnam, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did he write to you while he was
Oh,
gone?
yeah.
Do you still have the letters?
I did for a long time, but between all the moves, I'm not sure where they ended up.
How long was he in Vietnam? Do
A
you
year.
remember?
Year.
And so you just kind of waited for him and just kind of wrote back and forth?
Mm-hmm.
Did you get to call him or just letters?
No, letters.
And
no
so you
call.
were still living in an apartment with Beth, and then when Dad got back, what happened?
I lived in the apartment with Beth, but then I think I moved back home. I was living at home again then when he got back in '70.
And then did you get engaged right away?
Mm-hmm.
Like
And
right
then-
when he got back?
Pretty much. And then we got married in '70.
Did you have a big wedding?
No.
Who was at
no,
the wedding?
Just Bob and Beth.
At the Methodist Church?
Mm-hmm.
And what is your wedding date?
September 19th.
1970?
Mm-hmm.
Did you go on a honeymoon?
A small one.
Where'd you go?
You had to ask Council Grove.
For just one night?
No, it was one night, but that's where all his relatives lived. That's where he was from, and he wanted to go there.
What was early married life like? Did you both work or did you?
I didn't then because he was transferred to Wichita
When you say transferred, who was he working for?
when he was after he got out of the service. He went to Wichita.
For the military, he went to Wichita.
Mm-hmm.
And then did he leave the military and work another job, or was he always in the military?
No, he got out and did other jobs.
Like the golf course stuff?
Yeah, he did that.
Doing
He did
the
a lot of stuff.
groundskeeper stuff?
Uh-huh. Yeah. And then he,
And where all did you live? Like what towns?
after Wichita, I think we went right to Lawrence because we had a trailer. We bought a trailer and took it to Wichita and then back to Lawrence. And that's where you were born,
Was
in
in
Lawrence. Uh-huh. We lived in Lawrence, but I had you in Topeka. And then we sold the trailer and moved back to Overbrook on a farm.
So tell me about the night I was born. That was your firstborn. What was that like? Did
Well,
everything go okay?
Yeah. Pain. But getting to Topeka and all that, I don't really remember that. I don't remember even
Do you
driving to
remember being in
Topeka.
the hospital and what that was like back then? I mean, did they have
Oh,
painkillers? And did you have your own room like you do today? Or what was it like?
They didn't have, I don't think they had
Epidurals?
epidurals then. They had a saddle block, which I can't remember what that was. It was called a saddle block, which I don't think I had. I know. I had gas. I was put out. That's
Okay.
what it was.
While I was born, you weren't awake?
Mm-mm. No,
Okay.
no. Well, it was either either be put out or whatever that other option was. I can't remember what it was, but I chose to be put out.
And then when you woke up, everything was good to go?
Mm-hmm.
And you told me you wanted to get back to your room. Why?
I watched Sonny and Cher. That was a big show back then. We loved Sonny
And
and
when I
Cher.
was a baby, did you work or did you stay home?
I
or-
stayed home.
Stayed home. And then you guys moved to Topeka?
Mm-hmm.
And then were you living in Topeka when Cade was born, or were you already back in Overbrook?
Let's see. We lived in Overbrook.
Was that when we lived on the bachelor farm?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we just had Yeah, on the bachelor farm, because we had a push mower. And I had push mowed the yard that day.
While you were pregnant?
Uh-huh. And I remember having back pains, and I figured it was just from mowing, but they never let up, and it just got worse and worse, and then I
Went to the hospital?
discovered I was in labor. Somebody
then-
had to mow it.
And then after Cade was born, Grandpa Claude passed away.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
He had a heart attack. Another heart attack.
And then we moved to the Hollis farm after Bachelor.
I think so, yeah.
And is that where Maggie was born?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you remember about when Maggie was born?
When Maggie was born, I was gonna have the natural childbirth. Since I didn't on the other two, it had changed so much that I was gonna try that.
But you didn't get to.
And yeah, but that's when I was in labor, they told me that my doctor was en route. He'd been playing golf, and he was en route to the hospital. But my labor was so intense that they finally just had to take me into delivery room. And a guy walked in with the hat and the face mask on, and I thought, oh, thank God he finally made it. When it was Ben. That was the first time they could let husbands in when the wife was having a baby.
So Dad wasn't there for Cade and I, but he was for Maggie. Okay.
Mhm. And that was when then after, the doctor never did make it, and the nurse ended up delivering Maggie. And after I delivered and they wheeled me out in the hallway, the nurses and stuff were talking. You know, this is the lady that the nurse delivered because the doctor didn't make it. And next to me on the other aisle wall was your dad on the gurney. He passed out. My big hero.
So then
Couldn't
you
make it through it.
came back to the farm and you had 3 little kids. What was that like, being the mom of 3 kids in the country?
I didn't think much about it. You guys kept me pretty busy. Except the time when you swallowed the penny and were choking, and I called Rubel, Dr.
The
Rubel.
doctor.
Uh-huh. And he said, well, it was like, he'll either throw it up or he'll choke. And about this time he said, you'll either throw it up, you threw up, and there was the penny. But then there was a time when you got a hold of some of my fake beads necklace, and you were so quiet. You and Cade were both in there, and it was awful quiet, and I knew something was going on, so I go in, and all the beads were all over the floor. You'd popped them loose, and you were either starting to put one up your nose or hadn't when I hollered at you to stop, and I said, blow out. And I'd go, and you'd go, and I'd say, no, blow out. And you didn't blow back in again. So I'm
I
sure
probably
some of
still
those,
have those
I'm
up
sure you
there.
do. If an x-ray was done on your nostrils, there'd probably be a bead up your nose.
And then Cade ate the rat poison.
Yeah, that's when we lived at Hollis's. You guys were out playing in the barn, and you came up and said that Cade was eating Red Hots in the barn, and your dad didn't think that was right. There shouldn't be any Red Hots in the barn. So he goes down there and discovers it was rat poison. So either Bob was there, somebody was
Yeah,
there.
Bob was there.
Was Bob at the house
Yeah.
at the time? And
Bob went with him.
so you two, or they got in the vehicle and ran him up to the hospital, and they pumped his stomach, and anyway, that was another scary time.
And then we moved to the new house that you guys built in Overbrook. Do you
Mhm.
remember like that process of building the house and all of that?
A little bit, but not a whole lot. A little bit.
What was it like living in town versus in the country?
Well, I was close to everything, so I didn't.
And when did you decide to go back to work?
when I couldn't, when it was, when did I go back to work? Oh, I went to, when we lived there in town, I got a job at the nursing home. And that didn't pay real good, so I went to Jostens. And my first paycheck, I sent you kids, were all in school, so you came home after, in the morning and afternoon, you went to the neighbors. And when I got my first
To
paycheck,
Kathleen Lee.
when I got my first check, I think it was only $40 after paying her. And I thought, that wasn't including clothes, food. It wasn't worth my effort for going to town. So I quit.
So you went back to work, your kids are in school, so then once everybody graduated school and started leaving, then the kids started getting married and having grandkids. Do you remember where you were when you had your first grandchild? When Avery was born?
I remember it. I'm not sure where we lived at the time, but I have to think.
201 Oak.
Oh, yeah. 201 Oak.
And we moved home to 201 Oak after Shorty passed away. In 1985, we had lived in Auburn and Topeka. Do you remember anything about when we lived in Auburn and Topeka that's worth noting?
Well, when we lived in Auburn, that's when I studied to take the postal test. Pam and I decided we wanted to take it just to see how we do. So we studied a little bit. I took the test.
You passed it and started working at the post
Well,
office.
it took probably a year after I took it before they.
Well, I just remember we were
hired
living
me.
at 201 Oak when you actually started working there.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a fun experience.
And then in 1992, your mom passed away, and Grandpa still lived in the same house. And then we started having the grandkids, and then Avery was born, and then all the other grandkids. Do you remember? Tell me about when Avery was born. What do you remember about Avery as a kid,
When she was born,
or anything?
well, she was our first granddaughter, and I thought she was so beautiful. Beautifulest baby I'd ever seen. Might have been a little prejudiced, but she was very beautiful. And
she lived
big.
right there in Overbrook, so she'd come over a lot.
we went over there every day.
Yeah.
After work, we'd go over and see her, play with her. Yep.
And then in 2000, Regan was born. What do you remember? What do you remember about Regan?
Same thing. Beautiful.
Red hair.
Yeah. Well,
like
no,
Grandpa?
because she didn't have any hair at first, so we didn't know. Dad just knew she would be the redhead. And as it started coming in, you could see the red cast to it. We knew she was going to be a redhead. And he was thrilled, so delighted he finally got a redhead. None of us, none of our kids, none of their kids had red hair, so he finally got a redhead.
And
He
then
was very
Merritt
happy.
was born right before you moved to Lake Oshano. Because we used to bring Merritt in a car seat and just sit her on the ground while we painted the new house.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you remember about Merritt as a kid?
Well, I don't know that. Just another one, and now we had all three girls that were pretty close. Well, there was quite a difference in Avery and Regan, but as they started getting closer and closer, it was fun watching them play. And we had the one of the rooms in the Oshano house set up as a playroom, and you had got them a dresser one year with a lot of costumes and clothes for them to. That was the first thing they'd run to, is the playroom, to get all dressed up, and hours in that room they spent. And I did one wall that was chalk paint, and they'd play school all the time. They'd have classes, and I thought that was fun. And I painted it When the first time I painted it, I put wallpaper border up that were ballerinas and matched the paint to that. And then as it got older, I switched it to, can't remember what I did after the ballerinas. It was more of a,
Wasn't it the blue?
yeah, but I think I had wallpaper in there too, but I can't remember what that wallpaper was.
And then came Rosalind. What do you remember about Rosalind?
Just another girl. We had 4 girls. And I thought we were all excited because we had all the girls.
And then you had to wait a little bit, and then who came along?
Corben.
What do you
little
remember
Corby.
about that?
Well, the first grandson. So, and there was quite a difference in Rosalind and Corben. So he was still, kind of the baby. The girls looked at him as, the little one, and would kind of take care of him. But then I felt I didn't have another room for him to have a separate little playroom for him. So when the girls got older and not so much into playing dress up anymore, or dolls and that stuff, they kind of outgrew that I kind of made it into more of a little boys' room. Not quite to the extent I did with the girls, but he had his toys in there too. And a lot of the toys I still have. I didn't get rid of them.
And then when you were living at Lake Oshana, we lost Aunt Joann, and I wanted you to talk about you and Joann and the OJ trial. So we have that.
Oh.
Tell me about that.
We were so into that. I would go to work, and it was on TV, of course, during the day. So and I always thought got off at 2. So I'd come home and we'd watch it, and then we'd call and talk to each other, or I'd go in there and we'd watch it and discuss on what we thought of the day's trial and how we thought it went. Of course, we were all convinced we knew he was guilty. But the way the Cochran and all of them were trying to twist it and turn it and make it sound like the police did stuff wrong and handled all the evidence wrong, and facts are facts. We knew he was guilty till, of course, the day they announced.
And then what was your reaction when you heard the verdict?
Just like everybody, shocked. Seeing all the people cheering for him for getting off scot-free. He'll pay for it someday. For her sake, I hope. Nicole.
Talk about family traditions. Every Labor Day we go camping. Talk about that.
Well, you started that.
Does everybody enjoy that?
I do.
What's your favorite thing about camping?
Everybody being there. Especially when the girls were younger and put on their little shows and go off and play, and they had such a good time. It's always about the kids, seeing that they're happy and having fun.
And then in 2011, we got some puppies. Tell me about the puppies.
Jingles and Brody. Yeah. That was a happy day for us. Brother and sister. Different as night and day. Jingles is short and wide, and Brody is tall, and they're so different, but I think they know they're brother and sister.
And then your dog had puppies.
Mm-hmm. She had 4.
What happened when that happened? How did that happen?
We found them good homes.
But I mean, tell me about the night she had the puppies.
Oh, we were in the house at Oshana watching TV, and she was shaped like a bowling pin, narrow at the top and came down fat like a bowling pin. And she was laying on the floor beside me, and she just let out this huge screech. And I knew, oh no, her labor pains have started. So we had a little pen set up for her to have her puppies. So we put her in there, and I think it was later she had one or 2, and then maybe 3, and then by morning she had 1 more. but now I can't remember who was, how the line went, who was.
Yeah, I don't remember that either.
But Cade's family took one girl, Daisy. Penny took a girl, Violet. And Chuck Music's boy, they took one. And another went to Pomona, to a teacher there. So they all found good homes. And we had her fixed after that. The vet recommended we let her have one litter. So we did. But then we had her fixed afterwards. She wasn't, maybe the second litter she had, she'd be a good mother. She wasn't really a good mother, I didn't think. So I didn't want to torture her again with another litter.
And then you guys moved back from Oshano to Overbrook. Are you glad you moved back to Overbrook?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we were here all the time with the kids now in sports. We were always coming down here or driving somewhere. So it just made more sense to be here close, where we were close to all the activities and not have to be on the road all the time, which does seem like we spend a lot of time, but we wouldn't miss any of it. We love going to all their events. It's the highlight of our days.
And you have 3 granddaughters that are going to be Washburn students. Avery is a senior in teaching. Merritt is going to be on a scholarship for softball, and Regan is a pharmacy student.
Mm-hmm. Yep, all very good students. All of them are good students. Very bright girls.
Yep.
Very, very bright.
And athletes and in the band.
Mm-hmm. Yep, very proud of all of them.
What have you learned about life? Like, if you could pass a lesson down to the grandkids, what would it be?
Be happy. Don't dwell on negativity.
What is the biggest accomplishment you've had in your life?
My kids.
If you could change one thing in your life, what would it be? If you had one thing you could go back and do differently, what would you do?
Marry a doctor.
How do you want to be remembered?
Just kidding. Remembered? Whatever it is they think of me now. I mean, I'm not going to change what they... Hopefully good. They'll have good thoughts of me. Keep some of the stuff that I like going in there.
What are your favorite
Life.
memories of our family that we've lost in the past? Like, tell me a memory about Steve.
Well, we were very close. Steve and I were very close. So that was devastating losing him.
Do you have a good memory of a time you had with Steve?
Mm-hmm. We just played outside all the time. We weren't really like cousins, more like one family.
And what about Jackie?
Same, just another one we played with all the time. We didn't ever understand what his problems were. I wish they would have told us more. At that time, you didn't talk about things like that, so we just had to kind of take it for what we thought. So it was very scary growing up thinking we might be taken away too. I did.
And when you were 10, you lost your Aunt Margaret in a car accident. What do you remember about Margaret?
Oh, she was a very happy, funny lady. Very sweet, very nice. Loved her family, loved her girls, kept them neat as a pin. I even remember that at the time. Their hair was always curled and cute little dresses. And
What do you remember about Grandpa Claude?
his headaches. He had headaches really bad. He'd sit up on the porch step and hold his head. We all knew Grandpa's got a headache. But he was funny. He had a good sense of humor.
What do you remember about Grandma Grace?
She was a wonderful lady.
And she took you on trips?
Each one of us, every year she'd take a different one of us somewhere.
Where did you go?
I got to go to California and go to Disneyland, and her family had a reunion every year somewhere, and that's where they were that year, so I got to go. I loved it. Took a train, never been on a train before, and we left early evening. We were supposed to go to bed, and then when we got up, we were supposed to be in, well, I forget what point, but anyway, we woke up and we were not hardly anywhere because we'd had one of the wheels had broke, so we hadn't got very far at all. But it was fun taking the train. I loved it.
What do you remember about Uncle Shorty?
Shorty was a nice man, very kind.
Do you have a favorite memory of something that happened when you were living next door to him or anything?
I remember when my folks went to North Dakota on a trip and left me there. I was working, so I didn't go. But I had a Volkswagen and I had wrecked it while they were gone. And it was pretty dented in on the top. So Shorty had went and got it and brought it to the backyard and tried to pound out all the dings and dents in it, so maybe they wouldn't be quite so upset with me when they saw it, but it was pretty bad. But I don't really remember what they did. I mean, what can you do? It was after the fact, but anyway. But he did try to, I mean, that's just how he was. He didn't want to see me get in trouble, so he tried to help.
How has Overbrook changed in your lifetime?
A lot. People, when I grew up, you left your front doors open. There was never a locked door. The door at night, we didn't really, have air conditioning, and so they'd leave the front door open at night to get air through the screen, and never thought about leaving or locking the house, that it had to be locked up. We just run out the door anytime, day and night, and not like you would today where everything has to be battened down, and people were neat. Everybody took pride in their homes, their yards, and their neighbors. They were kind to their neighbors. If they needed help, they'd help them. They didn't park their cars in the front yard, leave trash everywhere, put furniture on their front porch. I just hate to see how Overbrook has just gone downhill. Plus, back then, you knew everybody. I don't know half the people that live in this town now. I don't know where they've all come from, but it's not the town that I remember.
What were your favorite holidays as a child?
Christmas.
And what did you do what was your Christmas tradition when you were a kid?
Well, we were in the church, so we'd do our little Christmas program every year in the evening, and we always look forward to that because we got a big brown bag full of candy and stuff after we did the program. And then we always opened our gifts on Christmas Eve. So Joann and Mom would take us around town on the pretense we're just going to look at lights when Dad and Shorty were home putting all of our Christmas presents out. So when we would come home from the ride, Santa would have been there. And we did that for years and years.
And then for Easter, you had the egg roll. Do you remember how that tradition started?
I don't remember how it started because to me, we just always did it when I was young. I don't know who decided, if grandmas or moms and them made it up, or if that was maybe one of her family traditions. I'm not sure. Nobody ever said.
And how did the Christmas tradition change when we were kids? What did we do as a tradition?
Well, we still did the same thing. We would do ours on Christmas Eve. And I guess maybe I Took you guys around town. So we always opened ours up Christmas Eve. We must have. I don't really remember that part. I'd have to give that some thought.
Okay.
But I tried to pass as much of that stuff on. All the holidays. Holidays were a big thing to us. Halloween was a big deal. We had our favorite houses we'd love to go because I think in my day it was Mabel Rundle that used to give big candy bars away, so we always made sure we went there first. One year somebody gave out little pamphlets. Everybody just threw them down in their yard. So little pamphlets were blowing all over everywhere. But we liked the good candy. And then coming home and sorting through everything, putting all your candy bars together, all your suckers together, all your gums together. It was fun. I didn't care. I don't remember even wearing costumes or anything. It was just all about the candy.
And we recently lost Aunt Nonavee and we lost Marlon a few years ago. What are your memories of Marlon and Nonavee?
Well, they lived in Colorado for so much of the time when we were little, growing up. I just remember them. Dad had a movie camera. So in all of our home videos, it's always Marlon's blue car driving down the road to the farm or driving out. So we always laughed, said, "Here comes Marlon. There goes Marlon." But just the stories that Mom would tell that Marlon he was quite a bit younger than Dad. So when we were, Vicki and I were, I don't know, 5 or 6, 4 or 5, somewhere in there, that I had curly hair and Marlon loved curling or brushing my hair and making the little curls in it. And then he went into the service. And then he got married, and I don't really remember too much of him being around other than the summer coming back.
And then after you all graduated, Vicki moved away, but she would come back in the summer, so you probably remember that too, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Couldn't wait for them to come back.
Yep.
Yep. For sure.
You guys still keep in touch now?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
With long phone calls?
Every day, at least every other day or so. Mm-hmm. Yep. Still hoping someday she'll move back. That would be really nice.
What's one of your favorite memories of anything?
Of her, you mean?
Of anything in your life?
Going to see the Beatles. That was
Tell me about that.
the highlight. Well, we
1964.
heard they were coming to Kansas City, and I don't remember how Mom got the tickets. I don't know if she had to write for the tickets or what, but they came. She got Vicki and I tickets. And then there was a group of us, of girls, that wanted to go. So Ronnie Anderson volunteered to take his car and take us all down to Kansas City. And that's what we did. And we had, we were probably 4 or 5 rows back from the fence that they set up outside the stage. So we were very close. And nobody sat down. You all stood up on your chairs and screamed and hollered. And, you know, I sort of remember them singing, but it was more, you were screaming and hollering so much that I think it took me 2 or 3 days afterwards to be able to talk. I was still hoarse for a couple days afterwards, but it was still one of my best memories ever, was getting to say I went to see the Beatles. If I don't do anything else in my life, I just, that was the highlight, for sure.